Hello, welcome back to Storytime at Nana's house. So before I begin, this book is called Bedtime Stories, but a lot of these stories don't really apply specifically for nighttime to have a more calming, relaxing story. But these stories can work anytime. It can be for nighttime if your child doesn't have any issue unwinding, or it can be for the middle of the day or middle of the night if you're a night owl. Whenever you want to share this story with your child, with the littles or not so littles in your life. But anyway, it's Bedtime Stories, and this is published by my friends over at Parragon, who've given me permission to share this with you now. So the story I want to read is called The Miller, His Son, and the Donkey. Are you ready? Let's read. Once there was a miller who had a young son and an old donkey. The miller was very poor, and one day he decided that he would sell the donkey. It was old and gray, but it would still fetch a good price at the market. As soon as the sun rose, they set off, the miller striding in front, the donkey trotting beside him, and the miller's son skipping along behind them. It was a bright, sunny morning, and because it was market day, the road was full of people walking to the town or back home. The miller's neighbor was one of them, and he stopped to say hello. It's a fine day for a walk, my friend, but why don't one of you ride on your donkey? The market is still far from here. Take my advice, you'll be walking for hours if you don't. What a good idea, said the miller gratefully. We'll get there much quicker if we do as you say. With that, he helped his son onto the donkey's back, and they set off along the road again, the miller striding in front and his son on the donkey, who was walking along behind. The road passed between two fields, one of which was full of farm workers cutting corn. As the miller came along, two of the workers stopped what they were doing and called out, Your donkey looks strong enough to carry you, Mr. Miller. Why don't you ride on it instead of your son? Take a break or you'll be too tired for the full walk. That's a great idea, replied the miller happily. When I've sold the donkey, I'll have no choice except to walk everywhere. But today, I can ride. With that, he took his son's place on the donkey, and they all set off once more, the donkey plodding along, the miller riding, and the miller's son jogging beside them. After a little while, they came to a broad river where a group of young women were washing their clothes in the water. As the miller passed by, one of them looked up at him and cried, You should be ashamed of yourself, Mr. Miller. You're riding on the donkey while your little boy has to run to keep up with you. The miller's face turned red with shame. You're right, he said. It was thoughtless of me. After all, there's room on the donkey for both of us. Thank you. The miller lifted up his son to sit in front of him, and they all set off once more, the donkey plodding along slowly with the man and the boy on his back. They were nearly to the town now, which was just as well, because the donkey was starting to struggle under the weight of the miller and his son. A townsman who was walking past them saw the donkey stumble and frowned at the miller. Your donkey's exhausted, poor thing. You and your son should be carrying it instead of it carrying you. Oh, yes, said the miller, looking guilty. I was being thoughtless again. We'll take your advice, sir, and thank you for it. With that, he and his son jumped off the donkey and chopped down a tall, slender tree. They used this as a pole and tied the donkey to it by its hooves. Then they hoisted the pole onto their shoulders and carried the donkey to the marketplace. Oh my goodness, that must have been so heavy. Terribly heavy, I say. When the miller and his son reached the market, the stall owners fell over laughing. Look at that, said one woman, tears of laughter rolling down her cheeks. That donkey must be very special to be carried to market on a pole. Be careful you don't let its hooves touch the dirty ground, Mr. Miller. The miller felt very silly indeed. He even felt sillier when the donkey, who was tired of being jiggled along on the pole, kicked out with all four legs together, snapped the ropes, and held it to the pole, and fell to the ground. The donkey ran off back down the road and into the open countryside, free at last. The miller and his son stood there, open-mouthed, and watched it disappear. All they could do now was go back home with no money, no donkey, and very red faces. And that's the end. Oh my goodness. Nana was hoping for a happy ending with that one. Oh dear. That's kind of silly to carry the donkey, wasn't it? Oh my, my, my. It is time for me to go, but before I do, I just want to encourage you to continue letting your light shine by being kind. Until next time, take care of yourselves. God bless you. And remember that this Nana right here loves you. Take care.